go in depth. We're going to talk about designs. Designs are basically as in how are your participants in your experiment grouped, as in how are they grouped. So basically for that, there are going to be uh, three designs that we need to discuss: independent, measures, repeated, matched. There's also case study. It's a bit it's a bit different. That's why I have written it down so that it doesn't get mixed up. All right, so independent design, independent measures. All right. So in independent measure, what's going to happen is basically you should have at least two groups, group A and group B. At least you cannot have one group in an experiment, right? So the point of independent measures is basically to find out which one affects which IV affects the DB most, as in, let's suppose there are two levels of IV, as in IV itself is the temperature. Two levels are level one is hot temperature, level two is cold temperature. And you want to see level one versus level two, as in hot temperature versus cold temperature, as to how does it affect a person's mood. So independent measures, you're going to have at least two groups. Let's suppose we do an experiment where, for example, let's have this. So hot would be group A. Yeah. So hot would be group A and cold would be group B. So basically, let's suppose this is cold temperature, and basically this is gonna be the hot temperature, right? Hot and cold. And now we can do this. So our participants, right? Let's suppose this is participant A. He's gonna be here, and if your participant B, as in the participant in the other condition, in the other group is someone else, as in this guy is only gonna be here, and in this condition, someone else is gonna be here. So think of it this way: one participant gets to be in one condition. One participant does not get to be over here and over here. See, he is only in one condition. So if one participant is in one condition or one level, right? I'm going to use the word condition and level interchangeably. If you're still getting confused, you can think of it as one participant per group. If this guy experiences this group but does not go to this condition, so it's an independent measure design. Well, if this guy gets to sit here and then sometimes later he gets to go here, that's going to be another design. So independent measure design basically is in definition of a design where a participant experiences only one condition. So you can see in this experiment, if we were to specifically define it, a participant only experiences one temperature, not the other. And why do we do this then? Like, what's the use of it? The use of it is that, see, there are certain variables that we discussed in previous class. There's some variables known as participant variables and some variables known as situational variables. Participant variables are, like factors within a person, such as age, gender, race, religion, as in their profession, whatever. Any variable that has to do with a person are known as participant variables. Situation variables are factors from the situation, such as temperature, noise, other people, color of the walls, time of the day, anything that has to do with situations around the person. So there are two top variables. Now, in this experiment of hot and cold temperature, right? What we did was we basically put two different people in two different situations. We want to we want to know which one is best for moods. So what we're gonna do is when we put them in different conditions, at the end of the day, we are gonna compare both of them, compare both of them, check the mood, and that'll give you the answer of how does hot temperature affect the mood and how does cold temperature give affect the mood. So our focus in general is temperature, right? So we are focusing on situational variables. We want to know how do situational variables affect the individual himself. We're not talking about how individuals react. No, we're talking about how situational variables affect the individual. If we change the situation, right? Let's suppose we switch it, will the mood be different? So it's all about situational variables and its effect on individuals. So independent image design, again, is useful when you want to study situational factors on a person. Uh, Number two, uh, so by comparing, you can get basically a causal response. So because when you compare both the groups, you get to know finally which one is better or how does one affect the other, and therefore you get your final answer. There's one problem with independent maze design though. The problem is that, see, participant A could have his own variables and participant B could have their own variables. For example, what if participant A had a gene had a genet basically had what if participant A had depression and what if participant B had not did not have depression, right? Could this affect your results? Yeah, because the mood that you're gonna get at the end are gonna be affected not by situational variables then, are gonna be affected by participant variables, such as a person being depressed naturally. So independent measure design fundamental weakness is that, yeah, you may be conducting an experiment to see how situational variables affect a person, but the problem is that unaccounted personal variables may also impact the results. As in, you're not sure whether people are giving different results because their situations were different or are they different. So there's always that confusion. So that's one main fundamental weakness of independent matrix design. One more weakness is that, see, for one group, you need, let's suppose, this many participants, and for the other group, you need this many participants. And the reason is that this guy cannot go here, and this guy cannot go here. Or if we change them, right, there's a this guy can't go here and he can go here because the rule is in independent matrix design, he's supposed to experience only one condition. So to fill two groups, right, you will have to choose many participants. Let's suppose we want 10 people per group. So 10 people here, 10 people here makes 20. If it was the case that uh, same people could be in both the groups, as in he could be here for some time and then here for some time, then we will not need to pick many people. We can do with half the number of people. But because different groups require different amount of people, so hence our part sampling it would be large, and that is going to be hectic. So it requires a lot of people to work. That's another weakness. Uh, so yeah. So is everything clear so far about independent image design? Balaj, is everything clear? That could be a possibility, but see, you're saying what if this group, let's suppose these are 10 people and these are also 10 people, right? And they're different people, but what if they're depressed and these are not depressed, right? Yeah, that could impact our results. And but we don't want depression to impact our results. We want temperature to affect people's mood, right? Not depression itself. So this variable depression is a participant variable, but a participant variable which is an extraneous variable that needs to be controlled. Something from the previous lecture. It is an extra variable that we need to be sure of that does not exist or has been controlled or has been neutralized. Otherwise, it's going to impact our DV. And the result that we get will be kind of convoluted because we won't be sure whether this result is because of a difference in temperature or because of differences in people. Is that clear? All right, so that problem always lies as an independent measures design, right? As in participant variables will always cause a problem. So there is one way to make sure we can minimize the impact. I'm not saying eliminate the impact, I'm saying minimize the impact. And that is random, random allocation. It's not random selection. It's not random selection. Random selection is when you want to select participant for your research. Random allocation is gonna happen after the selection of participants, once the participants are finalized. Random allocation simply means that you're randomly gonna then divide the selected people randomly in the two groups. So you can do this by, let's suppose, flipping a coin so that, like people can end in this group or in this group at random. See, you will not handpick these people and put them here and handpick these people and put them here, right? You're gonna do it randomly. So like if we flip a coin, let's suppose, or if we draw names from a box of tissue paper, right? The chances are that some of the people who are depressed are gonna end up over here, and some of the people who are also depressed, like we have 10 depressed people, right? So some may end up here, and through random allocation by flipping a coin, and by drawing names, some people may end up here as well. So in ideally, we want both of the groups to be equal, right? We want both of the groups to be equal so that there's no difference between the quality of people that are in both the group. Both the groups should be equal in nature. The only difference should be the temperature in this situation. So random allocation allows us to, let's suppose, equally distribute the impact of participant variables so that our PV that is not impacted highly. So yeah, you're still gonna study the mood, right? Uh, you're still gonna study the mood, but because now you have depressed people at both ends, your result will not be that much damaging because think of it as a depression here balances out. So the difference then would be obviously due to temperature, right? Well, that's an ideal scenario, but that's what you try to accomplish using random allocation. And random allocation always happens in independent matrix design, where you can have one participant per one group. That's it. A participant cannot have more than two conditions of being applied on them. One participant, one condition, that's it. Is everything clear up to now? All right, right. All right, I need you to be crystal clear in this concept because if there's anything left out, you're gonna have a lot of problem in AS22 psychology. So if there's any clarification required, you may ask, even if it's the smallest thing. All right. So when we are done with independent measure design, we have another concept called repeated measure design. Repeated measure design. Let's suppose we're running with the same concept of temperature and its impact on people, right? Same concept. We're running with that. All right. But in repeated measure design, what's going to happen is that participant A would spend some time here. We will record his mood, and then participant A would then spend some time here and record his mood. So basically, what we're doing is keeping the participant same, but changing the situation. So a person, if let's suppose there are three temperatures, hot, cold, and medium. So if there was a third temperature, this guy would also set it in the third temperature, and he would record his mood and compare it at the end of the result as to which mood increases his mood. Sorry, which temperature increases his mood the most, and which temperature decreases his mood the most. So why do we do repeated measure design? Number one, it's convenient, right? Like if we had three groups, we would need to select 30 participants. But if we do repeated measure design, we can have 10 people instead of 30 people. We can put 10 people here, then 10 people here, and then 10 people here. These people will be repeated, as in we can use the same participants over and over again in different situations, right? In different conditions. So in repeated measure design, uh, basic definition would be uh, participants take part in all the conditions. Independent design is the opposite. Participant takes part in one condition. If there are 100 conditions, he'll take just part in one. Repeated design, he would have to take part in 100 conditions. Nice, nice, nice. That's a good question. That's a good question. That's a good question. So again, you're picking up problems. You're finding out problems with every single research design. I like that. So these are problems. You're right. And there's a way to fix those problems. See, independent matrix design has its own problems, and the solution to that was random allocation. For repeated matrix design, there's also a solution, and it's called counterbalancing. Counterbalancing, what is it? How does it work? All right, two conditions here. Person A. Right. Let's suppose like instead of person A, like we have like uh, let's suppose we have two people in our research. It's repeated matrix design, so both of them will be here, and after some time, both of them will be here. Repeated independent matrix design, one of them would be here and one of them would be here, and there's no chance that this guy could come here and this guy could come here. So that concept is clear between repeated and independent matrix design. So this is what we're going to do. Repeated matrix design, two people here, finding out their mood, and after that we're going to shift them to the cold room and then check their moods as well. There's a problem. The problem is known as the order effect. That's the problem. It's a problem in repeated image design. Independent image design, what was the problem? Participants variable was the problem. In repeated image design, what's the problem? The order effect is the problem. What's the order effect? Think of it this way, simple example, right? I don't know if you drink soft drinks or not, but if you brush your teeth, right, and eat an apple right after brushing your teeth, the taste is gonna be off, right? Or if you drink soft drink, Pepsi, after brushing your teeth, the taste is gonna be odd. Why? Because the toothpaste aftertaste is going to affect how you are going to taste the food after you brush your teeth. But if you drink Coke or have an apple before brushing your teeth, the taste is gonna be different, right? Because there's no after effect. But you brushing your teeth may, feel weird. It may feel more like sticky because the leftover food are now affecting your teeth as you brush them. So basically, one condition can have long-lasting effect and can carry over in the second condition. What do I mean? Uh, one co what? Could you elaborate this? I didn't understand the question. Could you kind of repeat that question? A certain condition of wearing a certain condition, wearing a DB or having a specific effect. The specific effect is known as the order effect, and that yep, that's gonna affect our DB. How? See, let's suppose we put a person in the hot room and the cold room. There are two things that are gonna happen. The order effect has two types, and these are very, very, very problematic. The first order effect is known as the practice effect, and the second order effect is known as the fatigue. Practice effect and fatigue. They're two different order effects, so they're like subtypes of order effect. Either a person mood will get better over time, naturally, regardless of where they find themselves, or they might get tired because like they're spending a lot of time in experiment, or the first condition might have taken a lot out of them, so they might be tired when they go into a cold situation, and then their mood will like be dramatically affected. So there's a problem. Do you put the cold room first or hot room first? Either way, these are going to be present. So there's a problem. Whatever room you apply first, the person will either get fatigued or will or is naturally going to get happy. Let's think of it this way. We're changing the situation. I have a question. What is that? Being tired would be dependent on the room. Yes. Let's suppose we are doing this way. Football, right? Football, football, and like what? Ice hockey. Football and ice hockey. These are two athletes, right? And we want to know how they perform in football and ice hockey. But if I do the football condition first, and if I take them later on ice hockey, they're going to be tired by the time they reach ice hockey, right? So their performance will not be good in ice hockey. But what if they kind of warmed up in football, and using that football warm up, they applied it in ice hockey and they did better in ice hockey. So that's practice effect. But they got tired because of the first condition, and hence in the second condition, their performance dropped. There's fatigue effect. Something or one of the other is going to happen. So there's a problem as in which condition gets to go first. This is always a problem in repeated maze design. So what do you do this? So the solution to this is either you convert it into an independent maze design, as in you have one person playing football, one person ice hockey, and no crossovers. You cannot do that, but if you want to stick with repeated image design, this is what you do. We can give them resting time in between. Yeah, you're not gonna be sure how long the resting time should be. So instead of doing this, we're gonna do this way. One of the participants is going to go football first, then ice hockey. The other is gonna go ice hockey first, then football. We're like changing the order. So like we're changing this guy football first, ice hockey. This guy ice hockey first, football. So if we mix up the order, right? And at the end of the day, despite rearranging this, at the end of the day, we find out that people do better in ice hockey. If we compare both of these, and let's suppose he does better in ice hockey and he does better in ice hockey, we will get a genuine result. Why? Because regardless of where ice hockey is placed, right, people do better. But if I did it one way, I would not be sure whether it's because of practice or fatigue. But if I made sure that I kind of like counterbalanced it. This is counterbalanced, by the way. I made sure that there is no order effective play because regardless of ice hockey is played first or last, people do better. And this eliminates the possible explanation of order effect because ice hockey was at both ends, before and after, for every single different person. So counterbalancing is rearranging your conditions, counterbalancing. Um, in all possible combinations, right? Think of it this way. Situation A and situation B. You can do A, B, and you can do B, A, right? Football, ice hockey, football. But counterbalancing also has its limits. All right, so let's suppose you have three conditions, A, B, and C, right? For A and B, it was very obvious that A, B, and B, A are the possible combinations for. What if there are three conditions? Football, baseball, and ice hockey. What would you do then? See, the combinations would be uh, A, C, B, B, A, C, B, C, A, C, B, A. So like just by three conditions now, you have like how many combinations? I'm not sure if I'm missing any, but you will have to do counterbalancing one, two, three, four, five for five combinations. No, no, no. We're supposed to take all the conditions. You're taking two of them. We're supposed to write all the three-letter combinations instead of two, right? So sometimes we will have experiment with four conditions, with five conditions, and that's going to create a lot of combinations, right? And that's going to be problematic. And when you have a lot of combinations, right, uh, things get complex. Over here, there were two combinations, it was carried out. Three combinations, maybe we can carry. If there are a lot of combinations, this counterbalancing would be very, very difficult and then would require more participants. So counterbalancing does not work if you have like multiple conditions. Like it kind of works to a limit. So if you have many, many conditions, and instead of repeated measure design, it's better you do it independent measure design instead of repeated measure design because counterbalancing is a problem because you cannot figure out every single combination. And if you were able to figure out every single combination, executing it would be a problem. So why do we do this then? Why do we go through all this trouble? Well, this makes sure, number one, this makes sure of two things. See, if you keep the same people, see, if you have same people here and here, this guy's in football and this guy's in ice hockey. Instead of having different people, you have same people in both the condition. This ensures one thing, that participant variables are controlled. Because there's no way that partial variables could be an extraneous variable because this guy is here and this guy is also in ice hockey. So the difference between his performance in football and ice hockey would be the game itself, right? There's no way you could say that in ice hockey there was someone else and in football there's someone else. So the performance are based different because the person was different. Over here the people are same, so there's no way partial variables are gonna be impacting our results. So partial variables are ensured. And number two, why do we do this? To like kind of save or to like not waste time or resources gathering participants because in repeated image design you can use the same people for all conditions, so you require less participants. What's the bad thing about it? The weakness or the limitation is counterbalancing has a limit you cannot do for every single combination. So there's a problem with repeated image design. Otherwise it's fine as well. Do you understand independent and repeated image design both? All right. So see, the ideal scenario would be to have two, see, repeated measure design, we do it to eliminate partial variables, right? If there were no such thing as partial variables, we could then go for independent measure design. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, what if we had a clone, right? We had a clone playing football and a clone playing ice hockey. There would be no need to do counterbalancing, but there would be no need to also check for partial variables because both in both the groups there are clones and clones are same, and because one clone has played one game, right, no order effect, no fatigue effect, but that's impossible because we cannot clone. So there's another alternative, that's mash pair. Mash pair is the third design. What you do is, let's suppose we have again two groups. We have two groups, right? And the two groups are going to be, let's suppose my IV is uh, occupation, as in doctors. Doctors is level one, and like psychologist is level two, and my dependent variable is I want to find out the difference in level of stress, as in who is stressed the most. DV is stress. Imagine, so yeah, that's what I want to find out. So I'm gonna have a group for doctors, and I'm gonna group have a group for psychologists, and I'm gonna compare their stress levels to see which group has the least stress and the most stress. That's fine. All right. Up till now, what so like what does it look like? Does this give you a picture of a mash pair design? Or sorry, does this give you a picture of a repeated image design or independent image design? This one. Yep, independent. All right, so doctor, let's suppose we're gonna have one, two, three, four, five doctors and five psychologists in our, as our participants. So 10 participants total, five doctors, five psychologists. Doctor number one is named A, is a female, 21 years of age, and comes from Sudan, right? Doctor number two is like male, is 46, is divorced, and comes from USA. Person number C, again male, is like 51, and is rich, has a private clinic, so he's rich. Yep. Will we take experience into consideration? Yes, we will. Yes, we will also take experience into consideration. So like, it's a good thing you add to that. Like she has 5 years of experience. This guy has like what 15 years of experience. This guy has like what 25 years of experience. D is female again, female. Female, she's 26, intern from like Pakistan. Person of E is female, married, and is also intern and comes from Pakistan. So that's your fee, that's your doctors. For psychologists, person number one or first person is going to be the male. He has PhD, comes from USA, has 20 years of experience, and is 41 years old. B uh, is a female, has been depressed herself, and just done her bachelor's and is an intern. I'm gonna write for one more person, female. Uh, is like doing her master's. Is doing her master's. Has 1 year of experience and basically comes from England. All right, so let's suppose like instead of like so many people, we're gonna root for 3 people. 3 people each group. Question for you. See, we have one female, 2 male, 1 male, 2 female. There's difference in gender in both the groups. 2 males over here, 2 females over here, number one. Other than that, these variables right here, the partial variables, where they are, how many, what their age, their experiences, their financial circumstances, their mental health. Do you think this would create a problem when we compare their stress? As in, do you think apart from profession, these factors will also contribute to stress? So do you think our results would be messed up? Yes. So there's a problem. And all right, so we cannot do repeater-based design. It's impossible to do repeater-based design because this guy is a psychologist, right? This guy cannot be a doctor. He can't be a doctor. So like he has to stay in one condition. So repeater-based design is out of the question. So because you cannot change professions. So what we do, we're stuck. In comes mash pair design. Mash pair design, what it does is it allows you to equalize 100% neutralize partial variables, and only difference that will remain in the two variables is going to be your IV. So match pair is a design where you neutralize all the other unnecessary experience variables and keep the difference that you need between them. So the difference that you need between them are their professions, right? You don't need any other difference to be there. So what do? In match pair design, we match participant A with participant A of the other group. So basically what we're going to do, the only difference I need between them is doctor and psychologist. Other than that, I should keep everyone same. So in doctor group, participant A was a female, 21, Sudan, and 5 years. In part B, I will take a psychologist who's also a female, who's also 21, who's also from Sudan, and has also 5 years of experience. Participant number B in doctor group is a male, so I'm gonna match him with a psychologist who's a male, who's also 46, who's also divorced, also comes from USA, and also has 15 years of psychological experiences. Same for person in C, I'm gonna do that. Find a psychologist who's a male, who's 51 and rich, and has 25 years of experience. So now, do you think that the only difference between these two groups are gonna be because of their profession and nothing else? All right. So we kind of like matched, like we match the variables for this parchment of one group, and we match it to create the to select the parchment of for the other group. Sort of matching this with A, B with B, C with C. So whenever we get the result, the only difference will be between the professions and nothing else. But this is very ideal. Yes, it 100% controls in like 100% controls the partial variables. It does. So your results are going to be very, very valid. Such partial variables very, very controlled. But the only difference is it's very difficult to pull off. As in, what are the chances that you're going to get a psychologist with this characteristics from Sudan? Very, very rarely. So like, uh, it's very, very hard to find people who match exact characteristics. Won't this come under cloning too? No, this won't come under cloning because, see, this person who's a female is different. This is like, let's suppose she is like Sally, right? And this, let's suppose this person is like named Anne. They're two different people, two different professions, but having the same characteristics. But it's very, very hard to find people with the same characteristics. It's very, very hard for me to find one single person from this list who has the exact characteristics than the other person, the only difference being the profession. So match pair design is going to be very, very, very hard to carry it out because you can't match people. You cannot match people on all the characteristics. Realistically speaking, what I'm going to do is, in real life, if I were to carry match pair design, if my doctor from Sudan A is this, psychologist of A would be somewhat like this. Like I would get a close approximate to what I want to match. I won't get the exact match. I'll get a close approximate match. So that's how it works in real life. You won't get the ideal match. You come close to it. Is that clear? All right. So match pair design uh, is very good to get valid data. Very, very hard to pull off. So far we discussed independent, repeated, and matched pair. Everything has its own fundamental weaknesses and fundamental advantages. I also told you how to control the extraneous variables and why do we need to control them. So I've been saying this word a lot, extraneous variables, extraneous variables. See, extraneous variables are extra variables that you become aware of before conducting an experiment. Think of it this way, you're cooking the food, and right before you cook the food, you kind of realize there's something off. Maybe I got the wrong powder, or maybe like, like there's something like there's grease in the pan that was from the previous dish and I need to wash it off. So experience variables that you become aware before conducting experiment, so therefore you can control it or you should control it. But what happens if you don't get up? There are some things that are not in your awareness and you get to realize after you conducted it. As in, let's suppose you didn't realize before you cooked the food, you kind of realized after cooking the food. Like, what is this? Like, the food kind of tastes off. And when you say the food tastes off, think of it that it has been cooked. You cannot do nothing about it. So you don't know exactly what went wrong, right? You will think of many, many things that went wrong, but you won't be able to pinpoint it. So extraneous variables, and as extraneous variables, if not controlled before conducting the experiment, they will then impact the DV and then be known as confounding variables. Basically, if you before the experiment, they're extraneous variables. After the experiment, they become confounding variables. So there's always the case of before and after. Otherwise, the concept remains same. That extra variables have affected your DV, and that's a problem. Extraneous variable you can control because you get to know about them before you do something. Confounding variables, you cannot do nothing about it. You get to know about them after you've done your thing. Make sense? All right, Balad. Well then, You don't discard the experiment because your effort is there, but it won't be of much use. You don't discard it. You will keep them because there are some findings that are of key, but if a better research comes along, no one's going to look at your research then. Uh, it is of use because then research, because my errors will help other researchers avoid what I've done. So my errors will help other researchers not to make the same mistakes. And I will write that in my research as well. I have done this mistake, you should not do it. So kind of helping out the research community. All right. So our designs clear? Independent. All right. Is everything clear? Confounding extraneous variables. All right. So there's one last thing that I need to discuss with you. Case study. Case study. No groups. Case study happens for a long. It's a study where it happens for a long amount of time. Case study. You can study a single person or you can study a group. Doesn't matter. Only requirement is they should be unique or should possess some interesting characteristics. And one more thing, you are going to multiple methods to extract data. See, experiments happen in one day, right? You call participant one day, you do it, and you go back, and you never see the participants again. So, like these experiments, these designs, independent, repeated, match pair, are kind of like short term, like snapshot. I call you today, I do an experiment on you today, and then you go home. That's it. So the data that I get of you is gonna be of what 29th December, right? Case study is not like that. Case study, we study one person or group of people who have interesting characteristics or rare characteristics. Let's suppose I'm going to study people with autism. There's a whole bunch of people, there's a family of people who has autism, and I want to study them. So case study allows me to study them for a long amount of time and get multiple data. The problem is with that these people will not represent the other population because these are very, very special cases, right? You won't find them elsewhere in the world. Let's suppose acid burn victims. Acid burn victims, you won't find them abundantly, but they're very, very selective population. So if I study them, I might get to know something that I did not get to know about them. So, and I would need to study them for a long amount of time. So I'm not going to do experiments on them per se. That's not my goal. My goal is to extract data. Think of it like National Geographic and documenting in wildlife. So we're studying people the same way, Discovery Channel, like extracting data on them. Our data might not be useful for normal people, but it might help us to gather more data about things that we did not know of. Yeah, 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 yeah. Unique traumas, yeah, that could be one example. Unique traumas. So that's case study. You don't make groups in them. You study unique people or individual for a long amount of time and use multiple methods to extract data. That's it. So your findings are then valid because you have studied them for a long amount of time. So because why? Because if you study things for a long amount of time, it's much more legit. But if you study thing for one time, you don't know if that thing appeared right now and may not appear again. So you're not sure whether this was like one-time occurrence. But in case study, you know a thing persists would profiling be a factor? Yes, profiling is a factor here. So it's a valid but there's also one thing. Sometimes the researchers, because they spend so much time with the person, may develop emotional connection with the person, and then might report biased results. As in, they might feel some sympathy for the people who they're studying, so they might not publish some information, or they might exaggerate some information. So there is a researcher bias involved at times because they study them for a long amount of time, they get attached to them. But because they're studying for a long amount of time, you get rich data and the data is valid. How can this be prevented? Use multiple researchers and have them and compare the recordings. Use multiple researchers, compare the recordings. If recordings are similar, then okay. If there's difference in recording, there's a problem. So using multiple researchers is a tool. Or changing the researchers after 5 years. 1 year, different researcher, another year, different researcher, another year, different researcher, so that a researcher keeps changing and does not get attached. All right, Balaj. So that's it for today. We've done designs, all of it. Anything that is not clear? The time frame is depends on us. 1 year, 6 months, 2 months, that depends on us. We could even run out of funding and we might not be able to carry the research up to 5 years. The research might be cut short. That could also be a factor. So there's always teams of researchers whenever we do a research rather than an individual person. Yes, a person will mature. Yes, he will mature. Exactly, he will mature. But uh, this is the exact thing we want to know, right? This is the exact thing we want to know. So the data recorded by previous researchers will not be discarded. It's going to be used and going to be combined with the new researchers finding. So, and that's what case study is all about, tracking developments. That's why we study them from long amount of time. I want to study how does trauma develop, right? So I want to track the development. Anything, any other clarification? All right, then I'm gonna end the class here. I hope everything was understandable. If not, you can ask me in WhatsApp. There's no problem with that. All right. I'm gonna sign off now. Take care, Balaj. Yes.